What is going on, all you beautiful people? Thanks for joining me for yet another video. Today we're talking about knife of the year. I said it, I think this knife is knife of the year, at least so far. I know we're still kind of early on to make that kind of assumption, but this knife has completely blown me away, and that is the Mini Evo by Sharp by Designs. Let's dive into some specs on this just absolutely perfect knife. But before we do so, big shout outs to Brian over at Blade Capone. It's because of him that I am allowed to review a lot of the knives that you see on this channel, so make sure you guys check him out. He is a retailer for brands like Hinder, Jack Wolf, Attention to Detail, and many more. And while you are browsing, if you use code capt.rikki, you get 10% off whatever you buy. Don't let anyone know that I told you that. It'll be our secret. So make sure you guys check him out. The website will be down below, as well as his Instagram. So now that that's out of the way, let's dive into some specs on the Mini Evo. For the Mini Evo, we've got an overall length of 7.5 inches, a blade length of 3.2 inches, and a cutting edge of 3 inches. We're looking at an M390 flat ground Harpoon blade with a satin finish that is just absolutely stunning. We've got a titanium frame with a beautiful nebula carbon fiber inlay that is just absolutely mesmerizing to look at. So as I said earlier, this knife has made me kind of geek out a little more than normal. I usually geek out over design, but the action on this thing, the detent break is just incredibly satisfying and smooth. Let me see if you guys can hear it. That is so good. And the reason it has such a crisp detent break, as I learned from my buddy Kev, Knife Nerdery, I'll have his channel linked below, is Brian over at Sharp by Designs doesn't really use a detent ball for his detent. He uses a detent nub. So I'll try to get video of it, but it's shaped kind of like a half circle almost. And it is just so incredibly unique. And it blew my mind. I couldn't figure out, it almost felt like it was magnets at one point with how crazy smooth the action was. But whatever he is doing over there is just insane. And that's why I love this knife. Those little changes on designs make it so enjoyable and make it stand out from other pocket knives that I feel like it's definitely worth checking out. The other thing that I really enjoy is this Harpoon blade. It is just a thing of beauty, honestly. The only thing that I would maybe deduct a couple points, like 0.1 point of, is the cutout on the blade, the little fuller, is not really accessible for a middle finger flick. Like, you really gotta want it. You gotta really dig into it in order to deploy it. So I thought that was a little strange. I felt like you might as well just make it usable to deploy that way. But again, I am no knife designer, I'm only giving you my opinions. Another thing that I wasn't a big fan of at first, but I have learned to really enjoy, is the flipper tab. The flipper tab has just this really weird kind of unique shape to it. And at first I wasn't a big fan, but over the time that I've been using this knife, it's just incredibly comfortable. The curvature on it makes it so easy for your index finger to just rest there and flick down for the knife to deploy. Just really comfortable, even though it looks a little funny to me. I've learned to really enjoy it. I've mentioned in other videos that I am not a big fan of carbon fiber or fat carbon. It's just not my thing. I'm more traditional. I like my micarta or my plain metals. But the nebula on this thing is just nutty. I wanted the purple haze one. Brian sent over the nebula first before I got to say anything. And I actually think I enjoy it more than I would have on the purple haze. It is just so cool. Of course, very patriotic. I think it's hard to escape that. But man, it is just so cool to see all these colors, and each one of them is super unique, and the way that the reds, blues, and whites kind of blend together. I think it's just a really neat touch. It's a way to make the knife stand out even more. In hand, the Mini Evo is super comfortable. That flipper tab that I mentioned looked kind of funny. Comes in pretty clutch right here because it lets you choke up on this knife very comfortably because of that curvature. So I understand the design behind it when I was handling this blade. You got a little bit of jimping along the top so you can really choke up and feel comfortable. Now I will say I don't consider this a hard-working knife. I think this is a beautiful design, but I don't see myself chopping stuff down with something like this. I think this is just meant to be a very cool design for everyday EDC stuff, cutting into boxes, maybe chopping up some food, but I definitely don't see this as a hard-working knife. I guess if you really wanted to put it to work, I can say that the ergonomics are very, very comfortable. Something else to note is that I am assuming the pivots use some sort of proprietary hardware to remove them. Honestly, the knife came out of the box so freaking smooth that I would not see myself taking this apart by any means. But if you did, I would assume you'd probably have to reach out to Brian to figure out what tools to use on this kind of knife. I'm not familiar with it. Let me know down in the comments if you are. For me, aesthetically, they look very, very cool, but I'm not sure how easy it is to maintain this knife. For the pocket clip, we've got a full-on deep carry pocket clip, which is very, very nice. A little opening for a lanyard, and even this like kind of milling along the bottom there. Again, I think this knife just has a lot of cool touches that make it stand out in really great ways. The price point is $425, so yes, it is a little high up there when it comes to pocket knives. I completely get that, but you are paying for a knife that is just innovating a lot of things. The detent nub makes it super crisp. The way that you can access that lock bar, it has that little raised part to it, and it just makes it a breeze to disengage. And these are the little things that as a knife designer, I would assume are super important to Brian, the owner of Sharp by Designs. And it's just cool to see a knife maker put so much attention to detail into these little things, and it came out in a beautiful knife. So that's why I think that this knife, for me personally, is knife of the year. It shows the attention to detail that a knife maker, designer has put into a knife that is not only fun and usable, but just a work of art in a sense. And I'm just very stoked to own one of these, and now I'm really tempted to check out every other design by Brian. So that is all from me, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know down below what you think, and if you have any predictions on what your knife of the year is going to be, I'd love to hear those as well down in the comments. In the description, I'll make sure to have Blade Capone linked, and also Sharp by Design, so you guys can check them out. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, drop me a like and a sub, because there will definitely be a lot more coming.